Well, hello there, YouTube. This is Shed 41 coming at you today with a short tabletop review and discussion about the EAA Witness line of handguns. The gun you see before you is a brand new EAA Witness polymer compact version chambered in 9mm. Um, Going to talk a little bit about the history of the gun. Going to give you a novice shooter's take on the design and the shooting of the pistol. And we'll briefly talk about the background and the origin and how this gun kind of came to be from what I know. And I'm going to, without mentioning names, I'm going to attribute most of my knowledge to other videos that I've watched here on YouTube. Of course, YouTube is one of the, I think, the best resources for amateur feedback on handguns, and it's taught me a lot. I've always been a long gun shooter and never had a lot of experience with pistols here until recently, so I'm still learning. So I certainly am not offering this review or this information. I'm not offering this as an expert's advice. I'm simply giving you observations of what I've seen and known, and if there's anything that I say here that's not completely accurate or right, certainly post, message, or comment and let me know so we can make sure that I'm not sharing bad information with anybody. But here's my take on the gun. A little information about EAA, the company that imports this gun. European American Armory out of Florida has been bringing this gun to the States for a pretty good while now. I know back into the early to mid 90s at least, from what I understand. If you go back, you can find magazine articles dating back to 94 or 95 mentioning this gun. So it's been around for a little while. Lots of people know about it, but you won't find it in a lot of gun shops unless you're at a larger, at least where I'm at in East Texas, none of the gun shops carry this brand of pistols. I've seen a few used ones in pawn shops and gun shops, but as far as new ones from dealers, no, I haven't seen any. I ordered mine online and it's from Cheaper Than Dirt and had it shipped to my local dealer. But I think one of the reasons this gun is popular, chiefly to start with, its price point is very reasonable when you compare that to the perceived rather quality of this gun. This pistol costs less than $400, and comparing that to the guns that it competes with in that segment, an M&P or Springfield XDM, which I do own one, a Glock. This gun's going to be about $150 to $200 cheaper than those guns. So I think that's one of the draws for this gun, and certainly it was one for me. But again, it's imported by EAA. The gun is actually manufactured in Italy by Tanfoglio. And I didn't bring it with me today, but the carrying case, protective case that the gun comes in actually is green and says Tanfoglio on it. And you'll probably see some other videos here on YouTube actually showing the case. So not going to really go over that. And if you're looking at the gun and you know anything about handguns, when you first look at it, you'll recognize the design of the gun because it is really a inspired design, if you will. I'm not going to call it a clone, but it is an inspired design by Tanfoglio of the classic CZ75B. Really that gun, the CZ75, of course, was the Czech Republic's best version of what they could come up with the Browning high power design pistols. So I think it goes back and says an awful lot about the brilliant design of John Browning and what he thought the high power could be and what it continues to be today. And then you talk about enduring designs. Everybody knows about the 1911, nothing but gaining in popularity. And this gun, I think, kind of follows those same lines. Really interesting story on why there's so many versions of the CZ made by other companies. It's some patent issues, from what I understood, that didn't get done properly, and a lot of people were able to duplicate this gun. But duplication, they say, or imitation is the highest form of flattery. So it says a lot about how well thought of the CZ75 is. And I've held one, and I've held these, and in the hand, they really feel like the same gun pretty much. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up, and of course, first thing you can see is that the gun has been safety checked. I've got the clear magazine here. You can see that there's not a magazine in the gun at all. We'll go ahead and cycle. Make sure you know that everything's fine there. So let's talk about the gun in a little more detail here. Looking at it again, it does look a lot like a CZ75. And what I like about this gun initially, the first one I ever picked up in a gun shop, and a used one, was that when it hit my hand, it just felt very natural. The weight, the balance of the gun, where your thumb rests on the grip, the somewhat extended beaver tail on the back. Just the contours of the gun, the ergonomics of it are just very well thought out. And for my hand, it just is a really nice fit. And I've seen other shooters put videos here on YouTube, and everybody seems to say the same thing: is that the gun just has a very natural feel. If anything, an extension of your own body part there, if you will. And that's one reason I believe so many people talk about how accurate they can shoot with this particular pistol. And we'll get into that in just a second. Couple of features on the gun. It is a hammer-fired gun. It's not a striker-fired. Single action, double action trigger. As you can see, it's in the single action mode here. Pretty short reset. Pretty light on the single action. I will say in double action mode, as you can see here, it's a pretty long pull for double action. And for my smaller hands, it's a little bit of a reach and not real comfortable for me to get the pad of my finger up into that trigger and squeeze it the way that you would probably want to. I think somebody with larger hands would be more comfortable with it in that mode, but I'm really not somebody that's going to shoot it much in that mode anyway. But you do have that option if you want to. Again, this is the compact model, and really the only difference in this gun and the more popular P carry model is the size of the grip itself. You can see this has a pretty short grip. It comes with a 12-round magazine, and I believe the P carry comes with either a 16 or 17-round magazine. And it's really more of a full-size grip. Now, the P carry does have the shorter barrel and slide. It's a 3.6-inch configuration, so it definitely falls into the compact gun category on either one of those guns. One of my friends that was at the gun range with me, who's a pretty big fella, has probably larger than average hands. This grip was probably a little short for him. He didn't really know what to do with that finger, and without crowding his other fingers up into the trigger guard there. So probably for him, the full size of the P carry model would be more appropriate. So based on how I like to hold a gun, I would say if you have small to medium hands, this will fit you just fine. If you have larger hands, you may want to consider the P carry model rather than the regular compact model. Again, no differences in the slide. The only difference is the size of the grip itself. Now the widths are the same. It's just the length of it. Okay, and there may be some extenders, but I haven't seen any of them yet. Like I said, this is not an I don't believe we said it, but I don't believe this is an ambidextrous setup gun. Or rather, it's not an ambidextrous setup gun. I think it can be set up as one. You can move the magazine release to this side, I guess, if you know what you're doing. Certainly, I wouldn't be doing that myself. It does have a thumb safety, and some people like that because you can actually carry this gun cocked and locked, as the old saying goes. It operates real easy with the thumb, and this gun's real tight right now because it's brand new. Of course, you've got your slide stop right here, which you will remove if you're going to field strip the gun. We'll talk about that real quick. If you can see back here on the back of the slide and then on the back of the frame, you've got two dots here. And I'm not going to do it all, but all you simply do is just kind of pull the slide back. And with holding the slide and these two dots aligned, you'll remove the slide stop, and then you can just slide the barrel right off. Now, I will tell you, you really need the pin, other side of the pin of the slide stop comes out on this side, on the right side of the gun. You can't, it's really hard to push that with your finger. Now, maybe when the gun's a little older and it had some wear on it, it may come out. But I found that, and when I saw this on videos, is I used the butt of the magazine just to kind of press it, and it gets the slide stop started so you can kind of get your finger behind it and pull it on out. And then, of course, the barrel itself, there's no real differences in the configuration there. The guide rod and the spring come out. Barrel comes out for easy cleaning, so there's nothing unusual about how that's set up. The gun does, this newer gun, being a P-carry, or polymer rather, does come with a Picatinny rail. It has two lugs on it, so you can mount your laser or a tactical light on there should you choose to do so. If there's been complaints that I've heard about this gun, is that there's not a whole lot of aftermarket items for this gun that are made specifically for the Witness line of guns. Now, you can find holsters that fit other guns that'll fit this gun. In fact, I found an Uncle Mike's holster, just a cheap Uncle Mike's holster that worked just fine for it the other day. There's some guns, holsters that are made specifically for CZ75s that will fit this gun, from what I understand. So there are things out there. You just have to look a little harder for them. Extra magazines. You know, you're not going to go to your normal culprits, your retail stores, your Gander Mountains or Cabela's or anything like that and find these, from what I know. I ordered 2 more of them from EAA online. Got those in yesterday. Because this gun does only ship with 1 magazine. And maybe, I guess, when you're paying that little price for the gun, there's not a lot of extras. But I would have liked to have seen it ship with at least 2 magazines. But, you know, you can get others for it. I've heard that aftermarket magazines don't work real well for this gun, that they don't seat in as well. Sometimes they don't feed as well. But I have no experience with that, so I can't speak personally on it. But I have heard that and read that and seen videos to that effect. Let's talk again about the design of the gun a little bit. Now I'm going to kind of point this gun towards the camera. Now I'm off to the side, so it's not pointing at me. But one of the things that this gun's known for is the rail design on the gun. If you'll notice and look closely here, the rails are on the inside of the frame, so the slide itself goes inside the frame rather than on top of it. And the known advantage to that is that it brings the mass and the energy of the gun, and if you say center of gravity, if you will, down lower into the actual frame of the gun and makes it more as one, if you will. And the thing that people say is that from that design, you get less felt recoil, and of course the response of that is better accuracy. I don't necessarily mean to say that this gun's more accurate than a Glock or a Springfield. It has more to do with the shooter than anything else, I think. But that design does help you find accuracy, I believe. And from my shooting, I can attest, compared to what else I've shot, the gun really has a very manageable recoil, even though this is just 9mm. But I've heard the same thing said of this gun in .45 as well. So I think that's a real tribute to the design of the gun, and a lot of shooters like that. I've also seen where there's a lot of shooters that, not necessarily this particular model, but in the Witness line, there's a lot of competition shooters that like the Elite and the Gold Match guns that EAA puts out in this series. So I think it says a lot about the design of the gun, and from what I understand, the Witness line of guns and the match grade guns have actually won lots of matches and have a lot of national recognition. They're very popular in Europe for that purpose as well. If I can speak a minute about my own experience in shooting the gun, I've ran about 350 rounds through this gun since I got it. And I got to say, I've ran just regular FMJ target ammo from Walmart, Federal, 115 grain through it. I've probably shot more of that than anything, but I've also ran some dirt cheap Tula ammo, the Russian ammo. I had no problems with that. Of course, I've ran a few reloads through it, and I've also run a handful of Hornady hollow points, critical defense. The gun performed flawlessly with all those types of ammunition, and I haven't really set targets up any further than and done any looking at groupings further than 15 yards. But for a compact gun with a 3.6-inch barrel, I mean, that's really the effective range of what you're looking for, I think, anyway. After getting used to shooting the gun and getting a few rounds through it and kind of figuring out where to hold the gun, and I have to hold this gun a little bit high. It tends to shoot a little low for me, so I do have to hold a little high on this gun. I started getting some pretty consistent groupings, both at 7 yards, 10 yards, and 15 yards, and the groupings were pretty comparable on all distances. So the gun comes out of the box as far as where the sights are mounted and how they're positioned, pretty dead on accurate, and that's consistent with everything I've read and heard about this gun. That this gun pretty much is a straight shooter right out of the box. And again, not unusual there. Most of your modern firearms today do come out of the box pretty accurate and pretty dead on. Speaking of accuracy and sights, the gun does have 3-dot sights on it. It does have an adjustable rear sight. It does come with an Allen key so that you can adjust the rear sight. And of course, it's a fixed front sight.